We're back to Bare Bones Broadcasting, radio broadcasting as Barris Bones, Norman Woodstock, Spalding, your host. Hello? You can't talk. You be quiet. I have my puka beside me, by the way. My maker, my puka. Go ahead. What? Go ahead. Go ahead! You know what I mean? Now, well, goat head then, how's that? Goat head. Goat head. Likes to crack me. I know when the Lord's whacking me, the Lord likes me. When the Lord's pouting, I bug him because the Lord won't even touch me. But when the Lord's cracking me a good one, the Lord likes me. Not pouting. And I don't like it when the Lord pouts at all. Now, I want to remind you of something. Humans quoting the Lord out of a book. Humans in the book quoting the Lord. Anyone ever quoting the Lord? Anyone ever living quoting the Lord? Anyone? Are you quoting the Lord when you can only hear the Lord using your conception, backing up and remembering the evidence of creation, living, and using Kirchhoff's law, saying that whatever's coming out went in? Are you sure of that? That everything coming out and living in this little etch-a-sketch, very full of destination and, man, it's packed. It's confinement. That is the remarks to you of your Maker. Well, I find it the remarks of the invention functioning. It certainly is the remarks of the invention functioning, and living with that is, as far as I'm concerned, good as hearing the Lord explain anything. Once you can do that, who needs the Lord's remarks at all? Which the Lord has said. I gave you the conception process to watch it function and hear me speak and live in simultaneous with that. You're, what's the word? You're symbiotic with it. Live symbiotic with it. Well, fine and dandy when you're able to do that, or especially when the philosophy and the traditions and so on are the word if they're recognizing that and I'm phrasing that, I suppose that's so. Only humans are here quoting this. I'm folding my legs and I never do. My feet are cold. I can't believe it. In the bare bones studio, your feet get cold. Sorry to interrupt. Stop the music. Horrible here. No, it is a fool that quotes the Lord. The best you got is your conception. And the Lord didn't say that to you, and you're quoting as you watch it live, and you're still not sure that is the Lord. And a Buddhist is the one who reminded me of that, and I backed up and asked the Lord, and the Lord grinned. Thank you, Buddhist. And he had a stroke. He was not chanting anymore. No. He was pulling from files that he didn't even know he had and making some of the most wonderful remarks, and he had had a stroke and he couldn't refer to any Buddhism at all. And that's what he said. I don't have any recollection of Buddhism or what it is, what I did, or anything. Well, he wasn't stripped. Far from it. He was just getting going because of how he was living with Buddhism. He wasn't doing what he was doing without it. And what he was doing without was really helping me. That's for sure. Help me understand not only Buddhism, help me understand him. I mean, well, not only him, but living. Help me back up and see living in a very patterned way. And I always appreciate that. You can rent that film at the library on Buddhism. It was right there. And I wasn't getting that explanation from Buddhists, that's for sure. Anything I've ever heard quoted by them or anything else. Even though there's a wonderful lady, a Buddhist that I meet sometimes at the grocery store. I haven't seen her in years. I was living with a guy from Nepal. He was telling me Buddha was God. I said, Buddha ain't God. Buddha's a Hindu. Wonderful man. No, Buddha's God. And he talks to this Buddha God that there's no such animal as Buddha God. There's no such animal. And the history itself exclaims that. In fact, it explains something so much more and wonderful than Buddha God. You insult Buddha, I said, when you do that. You're not picking up what Buddha did. You're not doing what he did. You're not understanding what he said. And he was a wonderful human. And he kind of knew that, but he didn't care. He absolutely didn't care. That didn't touch his conscience one bit. So he wasn't genuine about what he was doing and what he was calling Buddha God at all. It was just another tool for him to get what he wanted. And he was a very opportunist human being. And that was just one of his assets for opportunism, quite frankly. And the lady understood all that, and she said, no, Buddha is not God. She was a Buddhist, a lovely lady that I had often, prior to meeting her, not often, but periodically, had wonderful, witful conversations with her. Not only a lot about living and backing up with it and so on. And she always had some kind of witful remark and or a sense of humor about, this is what I will remind you about this lady. Her sense of humor is what Buddhism is. Mm-hmm. And it's very much about a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And she certainly had that. I'll say that for her. Listen, to somebody who is a king of the Jews, Buddhism is not a threat. Chinese is not a threat. I don't understand why the two can't live next to each other, why they have to call each other names. I don't understand why Buddhism can't live within Chinese, why Chinese are so afraid. Listen, Tibet is Chinese. Sorry, yet it's Buddhist. Well, it's Chinese, and no buts about it. It's Chinese. And why the Buddhist Chinese are afraid of the national Chinese, and the national Chinese are afraid of the Buddhist Chinese, is staggering to me. It makes no sense. You don't disagree. The thing you disagree on is how the rank and file of Buddhism exists. And I disagree with that myself. I think anybody with logic would. Although I don't think that necessarily hurts anything as long as the others are allowed to say without you pouting that you're full of baloney about a Dalai Lama. I think you're full of baloney about reincarnation. I remember more of my so-called past lives than anybody reincarnated could, and I mean an echo of it. An echo of it. Wow! I mean, I take off like a, whee, look at this! When I remember my past lives, and they're all genetic with me now, and I have nothing to do, I've never been there. I ride through my own genetics, like a grease slide at a carnival, into the water. Splash! Into ignorance. I can't trace back in my mind any farther than that. As far as I'm concerned, that pool is my maker's dream chamber. That's how far back I go. My maker's dream chamber. So, am I reincarnated? I'm incarnated.